Notia Center of Excellence for Leadership. The center is a part of CII's integrated agenda of building competitiveness through various centers of excellence. There are 9 centers of excellence that CII has, which is spread across the length and breadth of the country. This particular center of excellence was set up by CII in 2009 at Kolkata with the vision of creating an institute which is dedicated to the development of leadership across all sectors, segments, and through a multitude of interventions, which is focused both on people and process transformations. As part of our endeavor, as a lot of you have already participated in the last webinar, as part of our endeavor to help and impart knowledge on talent management and on various HR processes, because this is the talent series. This is just the beginning, where we will shortly be starting a leadership series. So this particular series, so as an endeavor to disseminate knowledge on various kind of HR practices, best practices, we have started this endeavor of a series of leadership webinars. And the second webinar of this series is today's webinar, which is based on how to keep employees of an organization engaged and enabled. Those who joined in the last webinar, which was based on elements of a talent acquisition strategy, we have already seen that in today's fast-paced global environment, how a well-managed, well-planned, rigorous approach to talent management and talent acquisition strategy is an absolute essential. Now that we have acquired talent, the next question is, how do we keep the employees or the workforce engaged and enabled? Now, giving us valuable information on this aspect is Mr. Ashim Satpathy, who is here with us from ITC. He is the divisional head HR at ITC, and he has almost 16 years of experience handling various aspects of HR. He is basically from TISS, that is Tata Institute of Social Sciences, and he is well versed and has a lot of experience in handling various aspects of HR, including talent management. So now over to Mr. Ashim Satpathy to share knowledge, to share valuable practitioners' perspective on how to keep employees engaged and enabled. Thank you everyone once again for participation. Over to Mr. Ashim Satpathy.
Good afternoon, friends. Before I proceed, I just thought I would do a quick audio check. Are you able to hear me? You can, one of you maybe can type in a message on your chat box if you're able to hear me. That will help me assess, whether you guys are able to receive what I'm communicating or not. Any participant wants to respond if they're able to hear me or not? Okay, great. Thank you very much. I've got a lot of responses. First of all, thanks to CII for organizing this webinar in the area of keeping employees engaged and enabled. And ITC is fortunate enough to be an invitee here. And I'm personally grateful to CII and Tumpa for inviting me. I am extremely grateful and thankful to all of you for taking your valuable time out on a working day to be joining for this seminar. Well, Tumpa spoke about the leadership vertical in CII, and I think if there is a singular ask of any leader, that is probably how one needs to keep employees engaged and enabled. It's a difficult topic personally for me, because given all my experiences in the field of human resources, I think this particular ask is one of the most difficult tasks that leaders grapple with, keeping employees engaged and enabled. Having said that, what I will do is I will not really share with you a lot of theories and gyan for that matter. I will share with you some of our success stories, some of the things that have worked well for us, some of the things that probably has not worked well for us, and those are our learnings. I understand that most of you come from diverse industry sectors. Your organization might be in a different life cycle altogether, so you need to wear the hat of your context, your life cycle, and then see what works for you. But I think there are some nuggets that I'm going to share with you in terms of what has worked and what has not worked. So my job for the next 1.5 hours or so is probably to keep you engaged and enabled to understand, uh, what is this topic all about, and what you can do at your respective workplaces to ensure that people are engaged and enabled. Uh, I know it will be kind of a monologue because this is a webinar, but I'm tempted to ask this question to all of you, though I know I will not be in a position to hear most of you, but I can imagine what would be going in on your mind when I ask this question. So my first question to the audience or to the people who are participating in this webinar is, why to worry about engagement at all? What happens if employees are not engaged? What happens if employees are not enabled? When most of the world is talking about achievement in terms of numbers, how do HR people really ensure that people are engaged? And what happens if people are not engaged? What are the metrics about it? You go back and your CEO would ask about engagement scores, etc. That's all fine, but what happens if employees are not engaged? I would like to pause for 2 seconds there and ask all of you to imagine, uh, does it have an impact at all in any organization if employees are not engaged? Is there a correlation to say that if employees are not engaged, the organization suffers in XYZ manner? If the employees are not enabled, then it affects me in ABC manner? I think that's the first question we need to ask, because I don't think any one of us is here to just roll out an engagement survey, pop out some scores, and do some action planning. So I think the first thing that we need to keep in mind is engagement is not a piecemeal activity. It is also not a once-off activity in a year, wherein either a survey is done in-house or outsourced, and some of us come together to fulfill aspirations of closing the survey and doing some action planning for a couple of months and forget it thereafter. So that is something that we need to really question and unlearn ourselves. So I would spend some time on that in my first slide, uh, and really push you to your boundaries and go back to your drawing board and your offices and wherever you are to see what happens if employees are not engaged. So I'm flipping it. How does it affect your life? How does it affect your existence as senior managers or human resource professionals in your organization? So there are researchers, and anybody can Google that. But in my experience in the organization that I have worked with, clearly indicates there is a tangible outcome in terms of actively disengaged employees or uh, not engaged employees in the organization, and it has huge amount of repercussion. Mathematically, in terms of course, attrition, revenue, and stickiness with the organization. But I think overall, to me, what matters most is probably the brand or image of the organization, A, and B, uh, the culture somewhere also dissipates if high performing, highly engaged employees are not finding an avenue to get get some hearing from the organization in the right manner. So what are those avenues? What are the hearings? I will talk about it. Before I get into the case studies, which I want to share with you, I want to share with you some of the principles that we have arrived at after going through all the labor pain and all the experiences that we have had, particularly in ITC. Okay, so what has worked for us? I think the first thing which is very critical to me, what has worked for us is sow it early. Now, when I mean sow it early, I am requesting you to wear off the hat of surveys and piecemeal engagement interventions and see if engagement runs in the lifeline of the organization. That's pretty important. When I mean by lifeline, I mean you take a person and you spend huge amount of effort in taking that person. Are you spending enough time in terms of ensuring that a person who is not even an employee in your organization yet, is he able to feel or sense the level of engagement that you're going to promise to him on day 1, day 2, day 3, day 100, day 500, etc.? I think that's pretty important. So we have to be very clear about engagement as a philosophy running in the lifeline of the organization. And to me, it starts even before somebody becomes an employee, even before the employee code is created. You go to a lot of campuses, you recruit people, you recruit laterals, you recruit applicants, all kinds of applicants, you recruit niche skills. Does he have a say in the temperature of engagement that is there in your organization? I think that's the first thing that's important. And are there systemic enablers in your organization where it is helping you to promote, to sow the engagement seed early in the lifeline of the organization? I will talk about it through case studies, but there are some 4 or 5 philosophies, I think, which has worked extremely well for our organization, which I thought it's important for me to share it right at the outset. So sow it early. And here I would compel you to think about engagement for non-employees. Don't think about engagement for employees after they join. Then only I will start with some kind of an engagement. I want to break that myth and compel you to think about a situation where you question your philosophy in the organization as to am I giving an engagement promise to the person who is not even an employee but is very aspirational about your organization. So sow it early is the first one. After sowing it early, we have seen, and this is our learning, that 70 to 80% of the seeds that you sow, if you don't plant them, if you don't put your manure on time, if you don't prune the leaves on time, and if you don't give them sunlight, and if you don't basically care for them, then it fizzles out. So you're only left with 20% of what you have sowed. So if you want those 100% of the plants, what you have sowed, to basically see the light of the day, then I think it's extremely important to sustain it across life cycle. Now, as people professionals in our respective capacities, all of us understand life cycle. When I say life cycle, it would mean, okay, you acquire a talent, that is talent acquisition, what Tumpa was mentioning, some other speaker has spoken about it in the previous session. You groom them, you develop them, you provide them opportunities for growth. People who do not grow, they come back with some developmental plans and you provide them opportunities once again. Then you do some performance appraisal to see how people have fared, and then you ensure that people get rewarded and recognized and things like that. What is common, if you were to see all of these, what is common in all of these aspects? I think all of us are human beings. We are not machines, and I'm sure the organization that you belong to, you have large people who people you are handling and your people managers. So if there is one common thing, that is basically, as an individual, I should feel extremely motivated. I should feel extremely engaged, and that's when I would put in what I'm saying is a discretionary effort, and that's what organizations are aspiring for. The discretionary effort one puts in to basically take the organization to the next level, and not only follow, bullet points of SOPs. So what should one do to basically sustain engagement while recruiting, before recruiting, sustain engagement while induction, sustain engagement while designing development intervention, sustain engagement during the performance appraisal cycle, because in some cases performance appraisal cycle have their own merits, demerits, joy, heartburn, etc., etc. So that's pretty important. So do we have an engagement strategy to sustain it across the life cycle till the end of the life cycle of the employee? So that's number two. I think our learnings has been, if we don't sustain engagement, leads to more disengagement. It leads to more disservice rather than service. The third thing, even if we sow it early and even if we sustain it, an organization is not a jigsaw puzzle wherein a baby is playing something and just putting a jigsaw and it works. It's a beautiful picture. No, it's not. It it's a lifeline. It has a lot of life in it. So how do you create that life? Even if you sow it early and even if you sustain it, if there is massive misalignment among the stakeholders and there are no systemic enablers, then we will fall flat on our face. So I think that's the third learning that we have had, creating alignment. And to me, though I will talk about a couple of more what has worked for us, creating alignment with systemic enablers is the biggest challenge for sustaining engagement. You can sow it early, you can sustain it across the life cycle, but if we don't have alignment principles, alignment levers, and alignment processes in HR, I think engagement will again fizzle off. So what I mentioned to you as 100% becoming 20% if you don't sustain, if you don't create alignment, then I think 100% probably will become 2%, and that's the danger that we run through if we don't create alignment. And I can very well empathize with a lot of us, because some of us might be so imbued or so immersed in operations that we might miss out on the larger picture of alignment. So all the processes are there. Performance appraisal need to happen in April. It happens in April. Compensation revision happens in January or April. It happens in January or April. But are we missing out on that valuable time of creating alignment? Because more and more we are seeing that as we become more and more digital, analytical, and things like that, or probably that people touch in some cases might be coming down, and we have to be very wary about that. And alignment doesn't happen through only immense IT systems or policies. It happens through a lot of influencing and a lot of strategy that people create through interacting with stakeholders upwards, downwards, horizontal, etc. So I think that's the third principle that has worked for us. And whenever we are faced with a situation where alignment was slipping down, we have seen that engagement also slipped down. The fourth thing that has worked for us, that even if we sow it early and sustain and create alignment, if we are stingy in terms of recognizing people, or if we are conservative in terms of recognizing people, then it's likely that engagement wave also falls. So we have to be, if I may use that word, shamelessly recognize people. Of course, in the framework of the organization, we don't have to be stingy about it, and because this is the element, recognizing aplomb is the element that infuses a lot of energy in the organization as far as enablement and engagement is concerned. The last thing I think is nothing but you have to repeat 1, 2, 3, 4. Now, if you repeat, sow it early, sustain across the life cycle, create alignment, and recognize again and again and again, that's the point where you actually hit the sweet spot of building a culture. If we don't repeat, it's quite likely that okay, this has happened in 1718, but we are not very sure whether the culture is going to get built in 1819, 1920, 2021, etc. And every time people change, which people change in terms of their role holders, transfers, etc., sometimes we feel the next person comes in and this cycle is not repeated, and hence culture dissipates on its own. So very simple thing: sow it early, sustain across the life cycle, create alignment, recognize with aplomb. And the fifth one is, if you want to create a culture of engagement and enablement, then just do these four in the form of a cyclical manner, repeat it. So these are some of our learnings. Now, though this is directionally something that you might appreciate, but you must be itching in your head to understand, are there any case studies or are there any practical examples to see whether this has worked or not worked? And that is precisely what I'm going to share with you in the next hour or so. So what are these case studies? So what are these case studies? Let's go with the first one. Before you go to case study, I think we need to understand who are we doing this for? And the resounding answer that comes when I present this slide, some case studies, is we do it for our employees. Now, my second question to that, or my rebuttal to that is, okay, so who are the employees? And most of us would say employee is any employee. So if I have 2,000 people, I'm looking at engagement for 2,000 people. If I have 10,000 people, I'm looking at engagement for 10,000 people. So what kind of question is this, that, should I be segregating employees? Because I can't be taking a segmented approach. So it's for everyone. But again, I want to, force you to question that, because this approach, this omnibus approach, that one engagement lever or one engagement tool applicable to everyone and everyone's engagement level moving up by a delta of X, is it a practical proposition? It may not be a practical proposition, because let me give an example why it may not be. It may not be because let's say in our organization, this is the scenario. You have three kinds of people, more or less, who constitute about 80% of your population. We have people who are born before 1980. In the year 1617, they were about 24%. So we have just started 1718. So they would constitute about 20% of the entire population. Generation Y is basically 80 to 90. That's about 50% of the population. And millennials, which is 90 and beyond, is about 30% of the population. Now, if you see this chart very carefully, I have plotted, and this is actual numbers, I have plotted the percentage of people from 13-14 to what it's likely going to be in 21-22. And this is very important for us to consider. You must be wondering, why am I showing you a manpower percentage slide in an engagement kind of a conversation? I think this is the crucial element, because the language or the lexicon of engagement is understood variedly by various kinds of people who are there in your organization. What is engagement to a particular generation possibly could be disengagement to another generation, and you have to be careful about that. What is, and vice versa. So if you only see the left hand column and the right hand column, and this is representative of our company, but I'm pretty sure it might not be very different from any of yours company or the company that you're working with. So in 13-14, friends, our millennials were about 2% of our population. And in 21-22, which is just about 5 years from now, these people would be 67%, almost 70% of our population. In generation Y percentage in 13-14 was 67. It dramatically will drop to maybe 23%, and pre-1980, which was 30%, will actually be in single digits. Though I have mentioned it 10%, I think it will come down to 9%, 8% of the entire population. So what's the story behind it? The story behind this entire slide is you have to understand the engagement drivers by wearing in the hat of who are you targeting for engagement interventions. That's pretty important. So I would urge you to do a similar assessment for your organization, because the drivers are very different. So this is the demographic dimension I'm bringing into to the organization. Okay, just give me 5 seconds, please. Are you able to see the slide clearly, or is it looking a little cluttered? Are you able to see even the conversation area? Can one of you respond? Presentation slideshow mode. Yeah. Are you able to see the presentation in the slideshow mode? Can one of you respond? Can I? Can I request one of you to respond, please?
Okay, আবার করো, disconnect projector করো, disconnect projector, projector খোলো, এবারে exit করো।
Yeah, I think that.
That was a problem.
You please close the dialog box. That might be.
Yeah,
Is better. It's, I think it's better. Yeah. Okay. Fine.
You are in which slide? This one?
So yeah, previous one. Okay. Okay. Sorry for the initial glitch in terms of the. In terms of the display. think you can hide that panel. Yeah, okay. Yeah, that's okay. Yeah, that's okay.
Just make sure that everyone is able to hear once again.
Yeah, are you able to hear me and see the complete slide? Okay, Rajan, can I request Rajan to respond if you are able to see the entire slide?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Thanks, Rajan. Thanks, Shraddha.
Continue.
Okay, can you minimize this, please? Yeah, okay. I'm extremely sorry for that inconvenience, initial inconvenience. Okay. Okay, this is where we were. This is where we were. So my request is, please see the demographic profile. Please see the millennial percentage, and also see how that percentage is going to change in the next 4 to 5 years for your organization. Okay. Now, how do you expand the opportunity zone for engaged employees? Now, what is this opportunity zone for engaged employees? Now, I have some questions here. How to drive engagement across all types of employees? So, is it all type, or there are segmented types of employees in your organization? That is the first question you have to answer. Second is, can engagement be seen in isolation? I think if the answer to these two questions are no, then I don't think one size fits all would help your organization, like it has not helped us in many instances. Now, if one size fits all doesn't work for your organization, then what should we be considering as an important approach to create an opportunity zone for engaged employees? I think this is an important aspect, and I would spend some time on this. There are three aspects that govern engagement or enablement in any organization. So any employee, for that matter, has some aspirations. Any employee has some ability, and any employee either feels engaged or disengaged in the organization. Now, if you are in slot one, it's great because you have an employee who has the right aspirations, who has the correct ability, and who is thoroughly engaged in your organization. But is there an employee who has great aspirations, also is engaged, but doesn't seem to have the right ability which the company is expecting from him, or is leveraging, or is expecting to leverage on his ability? Now, if that is not there, then you have to really think about developing his ability to to basically reap the organizational dividends. That's the question that you need to ask, and that is where we have done some interventions. The third is, well, this guy has great aspirations, is capable or is able, but is not engaged. Now, why is he not engaged? Is he having a difficult peer group? Is he having a difficult boss? Is he put in a wrong job? And these are some of the things that are very important for us to ask, because the guy has the ability and you have spent enough money to take this guy. The guy has the correct aspirations, fire in the belly, but he's not engaged. So that's the third question you need to ask. Is there also a possibility that the guy is great in terms of ability, the guy is also engaged, but he doesn't seem to be having enough aspiration? Now, if this is the case, have we given him the right visibility to all the roles that are there, all the leadership levels that are there, and is he in a position to aspire to become something in the organization? And do we have a role to basically help him understand, how that aspiration level can be built given the opportunities in the organization? It is also possible that after seeing all the aspiration or all the roles the guy is still not aspirational. Then you really need to examine, whether personality wise the guy doesn't have the fire in the belly, or is it a case of you know non-communication of roles that are there, or the array of roles that are there, or is it a case of somebody already engaged and enable and plateaued in the organization, but could be a solid and hence I'm saying one size fits all uh, doesn't work in an organization where the organization is serious about engagement across the lifeline. Now, after answering 1, 2, 3, 4, uh, let's answer one more difficult question. What about people in the bucket 5, 6, and 7? Well, there could be many answers to that. In our learning, what we have seen is if the people are there in either 5, great ability, but not finding any engagement or aspiration, then possibly it might be a wrong hire. And similarly, a guy is greatly engaged but no ability, no aspirations, then you really have to think, how did the guy land up in that bucket? Because there's no aspiration, you're not able to leverage his capability, but he seems to be very engaged regarding the culture. Is he your organizational fit in terms of, or performance fit or role fit? And similarly, aspirations is profound but disengaged and no ability, then probably the guy is a mismatch in the current context. So with this in mind, let me share with you the first case study. Sow it early. Now, in our organization, and I had the sales and distribution people organization of ITC, which is a trade marketing and distribution organization, which is about 2,500 people. Most of these people, 80% of the people, would be frontline sales executives or managers. Uh, so what we did when we meant sow it early, what we did is we basically went to the campuses, local campuses. If I'm going to hire someone from Tirunelveli, or I'm going to hire someone from Bhopal, or I'm going to hire someone from remote Guwahati, or I'm going to hire someone from Kerala, uh, we have basically gone and launched a Yuva program, Yuva intervention. Now, Yuva intervention basically talks about first thing, attracting the right talent. Now, how do we attract the right talent? We have basically created a success profile, uh, in terms of these are the things that we need from any person who is working or who wants to work with us at the front line. Basically, ability to engage and influence consumers, planning and organizing, teamwork, problem solving, sharp observation, and able to gather insights and drive and making things happen. Mind it, these are not technical competencies, these are behavioral competencies, and we have engaged with the campus in basically creating a psychometric profile and hiring the right talent. Now, why am I saying this is an engagement even before the guy becomes an employee? Now, this is an engagement because we provide him an experiential aspect of what his job is going to be on the campus. Now, he does a lot of contests which are fast moving consumer goods related, starting from a return on investment to branding, to above the line, to below the line, selling techniques, how he influences consumers, customers, what is his orientation towards quality. And this is not what he does in terms of basically writing on a piece of paper or answering a test, but actually doing it on the campus through either role plays or similar simulation exercises. So it is extremely engaging to him, because then he is in a position to take a call whether this is the kind of job that I want or I do not want. And whether he wants or he does not want, it is a win-win for both the candidate and the employee. So he gets a realistic job preview, which I think is very important. And that is our learning. Earlier, we used to have, exercises which were not interactive in nature. But here, when he knows this is going to be his day in and day out in terms of a job, a lot of people are are really excited to do that kind of a job, and they become great fits. And some of them who might have another aspiration uh, at least get absolute clarity that this is probably not the job that I want to do, or I'm not a fit for this job. And that's the call that they take at the campus. So it provides absolute transparency in terms of the job. Second, it is extremely engaging at the campuses because they know they have made the right career decision without thinking that, oh, I'm probably sitting in the fence, though I have got the right company, have I got the right job? No, so that is what I mean by engagement of a person even before he becomes an employee. Let me give you and what we do here is we take a lot of alumnus and from that institute, and they also help clarify uh, a lot of the doubts, and build a relationship in terms of giving them a practical perspective of what are the key differentiators of the job, how they have fared in this company, how they have how they feel motivated about the job, and hence whether they should be looking for this job or not. We also tell about the aspects of a job that might be hunky dory, might not be hunky dory, some basically the practical aspects of the job, and that helps the guy make a very concerted and informed decision. So that is the case study one. That is the case study one. The second case study I'm going to discuss with you is again on sow it early, which is engagement, on engagement. Now, once the guy comes in, now here is the guy who have selected this right, and the guy comes into to the company. We have realized that one aspect is pretty important, and that aspect is what we call as mentoring. The various initiatives that you see on this slide are various initiatives for various types of recruits. Now, Sampark is a program we are currently running for all frontline salespeople across India, uh, and that basically talks of the contemporary channel induction that they go through. So the running thing in all this is there is an associate or there is a friend who is tagged to you in either in terms of a buddy or in terms of a mentor who help you socialize in the first 1 year, because a lot of people come with a lot of questions, maybe apprehensions, maybe doubts, and if you see infant mortality in many organizations, most of it probably would be because their socialization in the first 1 year was not correct, or they assumed something and they landed up doing something, or what someone assumed in the first 1 or 2 months is absolutely incorrect, and things like that. So Sampark is what we run for our frontline field sales staff, wherein the ownership of how he's faring is completely with the manager in terms of grooming, and the human resource only plays an enabler role. And the second thing is we have various categories and products and channels like foods, personal care, matches, agarbatti, and so on and so forth. So it's a very important aspect to contemporize the child induction. So our learning has been, if there is an induction program that is sitting there for the last 4 years, then, and if the company is changing its gears every now and then probably we really need to look into revamping the induction with the same frequency at which the company is changing, rather than just having a very plain induction. Buddy system has worked immensely well for us in terms of cultural acclimatization, and there are certain aspects of processes and systems which people have in terms of queries, which gets a lot answered through these buddies for frontline sales staff. Kites is a flagship program we run for tier 1 schools. We go to a lot of tier 1 schools, Indian Institute of Management and Accelerize, SPJNs, and so on and so forth. What we do is, what we have seen is important here is, Why are these interns so engaged? They're so engaged because they're not doing a project for the heck of doing it. After they complete the project, most of these projects are implemented in the organization. There's live revenue earning or cost saving or brand related projects, and that gives a huge amount of empowerment to the interns, because they have already lived the life of the company even before they have joined. And even when they are interns, they are contributing in the same manner or more to the revenue, to the business plan, to the strategy of the organization. Diksha is a mentoring program again for management trainees. They act as immense anchors in helping them share the context of the ITC, share the context of various. Most of them have experience about anywhere between 15 to 25 years. And sometimes when you compress that experience of 15 to 25 years for a newcomer in 1 year, they gain a lot in terms of their trust and relationship. The fifth one, I think, is if we take laterals, then I think they need a lot of transitioning when they're coming from, we have a lot of divisions. So anyone who comes from, let's say, foods business to a personal care business, to maybe lifestyle retailing business, etc., gets a lot of help in terms of transition. So we have a role-based induction in a matrix environment, and I think that's critical. That's our learning, that when we have a matrix environment, going from one division to another division is almost like going from one company to another company. And we can't be fairly assuming that just because that person is there in the same company for the last 4 years, he doesn't need an induction. He of course needs an induction, and that is a transitional help that we provide. And that has helped us build engagement through people movements, through transitions, and that's what I mean by the life cycle of the organization. So I think it's important to sow it early. Otherwise, engagement only hangs loose somewhere as a one-time yearly activity, and it takes a lot of time to actually integrate engagement through mentoring, through induction, or through hiring the right fit. So that is about sowing it early. Now let me come to the next story, or the next principle, and I want to share this example with you. After sowing it early, it becomes extremely important for us to sustain it across the life cycle. Now here is an example I'm giving you about the various kinds of roles a person in a sales organization in ITC goes through. Now we have certain categories and channels, what we call it, the convenience channel, grocery channel, education and stationery products channel, that is ESPB, modern trade and institutional business channel, hotel, restaurants and cafeteria channel, HoReCa, whatever you see in yellow or white in under the channel category is basically the job or the role, which is divided into logical families based on either the channel or the category. We have channel which is based on population group, 1 lakh population, 10 lakh population, etc., etc. Now here is this guy called Swaminathan Gundana, who is somewhere in South. Now he joined the company in 2010. Now he handled the convenience focus products channel in the 1 lakh population group and has been there for 9 months. Before that, he has been in the opportunity market for 39 months. And before that, he has been in the grocery one channel in Jaipur for 13 months. His performance rating has been, let's say, C, A, and B for the last 3 years. And we want to basically drive his engagement level in the organization. How do we drive that? First of all, we assess where he is. He might be a high potential guy, mid potential guy, or a low potential guy. What he needs to basically cover is the various aspects of the success factor that are associated with the job. Now if you see convenience, Swaminathan Gundana has had no exposure to the new systems and processes in convenience. However, he knows distributor management and remittance planning, but he has no exposure to other aspects like crisis management, price stability, and things like that. Similarly, you will find certain aspects ticked off for the form of an exposure for Gundana Swaminathan, and certain aspects No, which is not. Let's say Swaminathan Gundana aspires to be in education and stationery products. Now, in the education and stationery products, he needs to understand aspects of institutional business. He needs to understand aspects of seasonality, distributor management and remittance, establishment of systems and processes, etc. Now, if that is the aspiration and that is going to engage him and enable him to drive his career, then organization gives in inputs on that right now so that he is ready to take on that role at a later point in time. And similarly vice versa, if he's in educational stationery products and wants to build his career in foods or grocery, then he immediately can move in without any inputs, because he already has those assessments done and he has ticked off aspects of execution excellence, distributor management, knowledge of systems and processes. So the short story from this is, it is very important to build in systems and processes to sustain people's aspirations through a career management aspect like this. Now, otherwise, again, driving some action plans post a survey might not really be institutionalizing the aspects of engagement in any of our organizations. So that is the first example under sustaining across life cycle, and our experience has been this has really worked for a lot of people. Now, probably we are very fortunate that we have a lot of channels and exposures and roles, but I'm sure every organization can carve out such opportunities given the scope that the organization operates in. So I would strongly urge you to assess those opportunities of engagement through building career anchors and career management practices. The second example which I'm going to give you here is, I'm going to move beyond frontline sales, and I'm going to talk about people who are management trainees plus 6 years, plus 3 years, plus 10 years. Let's say somebody is a senior manager. We have an intervention called PACE, which is planned conversations for enhancing individual development, and this is basically engagement through career conversation and action planning. What this is basically is, actually most organizations have this, but our learning has been, and we have had many avatars of this, version 1, version 2, version 3, etc. But our learning has been, you have to provide a platform which is empowering enough for the employee to trust. Now, if the aspirations is flowing through many layers and there is transmission loss that is happening through any of the layers, then it might not be empowering for the person to have a empowering conversation. Whilst manager is the first entry point and it should always be maintained, but it is important for the organization to loop back to the employee by having a very transparent discussion about his career and providing the opportunity to converse with the decision makers as well at times. So empowering platform is number one. That is very important to sustain engagement through the life cycle. The second one is, there has to be participatory decisions. People have to be aware that every person who is a stakeholder in the person's career is giving right amount of inputs, and all that is getting looped back to the employee, rather than an impersonal letter that might be coming in some cases, which says, you're good for you're fit for this, or you're not fit for this. I think our learning from this has been, the third one is most difficult, which is dialoguing. Now, it is not an ideal world where everybody aspires everything and everybody gets everything. So, and organizations also work with enormous amount of constraints in the current scenario. So it is very important to have a proper dialoguing with the employee by considering all aspects, even the personal constraints of the employee, so that the employee feels that, okay, even if this might not be happening to him now, but there is enough confidence in the employee that given the right opportunity, it will happen to him later. And if this dialoguing is not done through a trust mode, it's quite possible that the employee loses the confidence and that gets disengaged. And once he or she gets disengaged, then he or she might be thinking about other course of action. The fourth one is also extremely important. Let's say XYZ has been dialogued, and let's say my aspiration is to be a niche brand manager or to be a research analyst. Well, that is my aspiration definitely, but my current assessment might say that in order to be a research and development manager, I need to have XYZ skills. So is the organization providing the individual any relevant support to meet those aspirations maybe at a later point in time? And what is the organization philosophy on that? Because that also determines what is to what extent the organization can go to basically fulfill the aspirations of the people, and is engagement a philosophy or it is not a philosophy. So in our learning, we have seen developmental inputs link up very strongly with the individual's aspirations. And despite the fact that the aspiration might get addressed or might not get addressed immediately, it is important to bridge the developmental connected with the individual, so that the trust aspect with the organization is not lost. Sometimes it happens that after repeated developmental inputs, there might not be the desired delta that the organization there might be looking at. If that is not happening, then also the organization needs to have very, very fair kind of a dialogue with the individual, that probably his strengths are resident to the current job, or maybe to some other job which he might not be aware of. And those conversations are extremely important, rather than be silent about, rather than we being silent about it. So I think PACE to us is an intervention wherein we are driving engagement through conversations, through important conversations, and we close it through the right amount of action planning. Actually, the proof of the pudding here is closing the aspirations. The aspirations could be in the form of a movement, it could be in the form of a role change, it could be in the form of additional inputs, but if the organization is not showing proper closing actions on any of these three, then it could be a great exercise in a particular year, but in the next year, people might feel, okay, that was just an exercise, but nothing was closed. So it's very, very important to close certain things in the right manner. And in our experience, we have seen people really appreciate closing and dialoguing, despite the fact that some of their aspirations might not be getting fulfilled in the immediate year. So I think that's a great learning that we have had. Sometimes when you embark on an important exercise like this, an organization might have apprehension that such difficult dialoguing or such important dialoguing might lead to some other derailment. But that's not what the employee is thinking in our experience. The employee is very appreciative about the fact that you have been transparent in sharing with him the path, the immediate path, the near path, the developmental inputs, the gaps, if at all there is any. So I think that's our third case study in terms of sustaining engagement through the life cycle. My next case study on basically engagement is, now we'll move from, we learned about sowing it early. We learned about sustaining besides sowing. And now let's move on to the next aspect of the life cycle, which is, even if you sow and sustain, how do you create alignment? And the case study that I have before you is, we have something called as a selection board approach. Now, what that means is, people who are in the organization get an opportunity to apply for higher levels. I can aspire to be on the higher level, but there's a lot of engine that runs to make it to the higher level, and a lot of it could be organizational support, and some of it could be individual effort as well. So the selection board approach basically says that all our developmental intervention should be integrated to the needs analysis of the individual, and it should start at the needs analysis of the individual, and it should end with the right amount of opportunities that are being provided. And it is very important for the entire organization to be aligned to this concept. Let me give an example. What does alignment mean? What that basically means is, okay, if there is a person in my team and I want that person to get promoted because he has the potential, then I should not be stingy in giving undivided time for his development. A lot of the times it happens in many organizations that training is seen as a secondary thing or a tertiary thing. Sometimes people perceive that he needs to go on training because he's probably too busy doing his work. It's kind of a relief from work. Now, if that is the philosophy, that will not work, because all of us are not aligned. One person thinks that training is just a basic need. Some other person thinks it's a very critical need. Now the individual is confused because the individual is getting two different signals. Somebody saying him, it is very important for you to, let's say, improve your negotiation skills or objection handling skills. But if someone else in the organization says, well, do you really think you can improve negotiation in a day or two? So I think you just go to the program and come back. Now that is complete misalignment, chaos, anarchy. So, and this cannot happen at a lower level or even at a middle level. At the top level, there has to be absolute alignment in terms of strategic need and the importance of that individual's development to the business outcomes and the individual's growth. So if these two things are taken into account right at the decision making level, then we have complete alignment, rather than people having 12 different views about whether it's an elephant or it's a snake, and all those things. I'm sure you understand the example that I'm giving. So here we have had a case of about 600 people eligible and about 12 getting promoted through a very rigorous selection process. But I don't want to belabor on the selection process. I want to belabor on the back-end engines that are running to make that happen in terms of his development, in terms of his OTJ projects, on the job projects, in terms of the orientation programs, in terms of the category knowledge, etc. So everybody needs to be aligned on that. And similarly, vice versa, let me also tell, sometimes people or HR managers might be focusing too much on behavioral training, whereas the need might be technical. So you don't want your guy to land up with all kinds of behavioral inputs, but not having the basic knowledge of the quality of the product, how a product functions in the market, or regulatory aspects of the product for that matter. So it's extremely important that people who handle technical training, people who handle behavioral training, people who are responsible for the growth of the employee, people and the employee himself are all on the same page. And this is what I am talking of alignment, because we have also gone through the ups and downs and hiccups. At some point in time, we have had this discrete approach, but we know it has not worked for us, and it leads to a lot of confusion, and I would say even disengagement at the workplace, because at the end of it, you might be losing a valuable guy because everybody has a different opinion about development. So that's my that's my case study. Now the pictures that you see are basically AMDP, which is nothing but an area manager development program. Now here you see a lot of people wearing some caps. They're basically in a foods factory, in a chips factory, and these are actually not technical managers. They're actually sales manager, and we have spent significant amount of time educating them on the quality of the product. So when they converse with at the marketplace, they converse on the quality of the product and in the language of the consumer, because they have seen the process inside out. So they cannot be distanced. We cannot assume that sales manager will only sell, but will have no clue to how the product is getting manufactured. The second one is the lead series. What you see, lead series is basically a classroom program wherein everybody is in alignment on the developmental input, and there's a collaborative approach on the development, and so on and so forth. We run it through various regions, north, south, east, west. But the key crux is alignment of various stakeholders and common language of what leads to overall engagement for the employee. So that is the case study on the selection board approach. Well, the constraint to this might be some organization might not be having enough opportunities for people to grow. So be it. Even if that is so, which we have also witnessed, it might be a life cycle change, which we have also witnessed. That doesn't prevent us from building a healthy pool for the future. And most employees are looking for that message or that direction. Because are we able to sustain our philosophy? Are we able to give them right amount of input so that tomorrow, if there is a rainy day, then are we prepared enough? Because please remember, all these inputs that I'm talking about takes a hell lot of a time. Okay, so even if there is a gestation period of 6 months, 9 months, 1 year, doesn't matter, because nobody has seen how will 2018-19 be. But if we change our philosophy mid-course, then there are some messages that will go to employees, and they will they might not voice it vocally as disengagement, but they will feel disengaged, and the manifestations of those disengagement might get reflected at workplace. So I'm not discounting the fact that every organization has a different life cycle, but I think this is where your values, our values, or our philosophy gets tested. So that is the case study on the selection board approach. The next study on alignment is, now the two pictures that you see on your right, you see a lot of ladies or women there. Every organization has an important backbone which services their front end. Now, the example that I'm giving you, these are all office associates of ITC Limited in the sales and distribution team. They are very, very crucial back-end support staff. But you will be surprised what they're going through. They're actually going through a yippee testing exercise. So we are teaching them the aspects of the products through an experiential journey, through a chef, through important aspects. Now, for example, what we are saying is, 80 to 90% of the Indian consumers have round vessels in their kitchens or utensils, and that's the reason why yippee is round and not square. You cannot have a square product being put in, and this is India, this is not any other country. That's the USP. So they are being taught about those things, but that is not their job. These people actually do delivery, order processing, some back-end staff, maybe they might be programmers. But why are we creating internal brand ambassadors? We are creating internal brand ambassadors here because we have realized that they are the strongest word of mouth. At the end of it, they are mothers, proud wives, proud sisters, etc. They go to their families, and their role in spreading the image and brand is far greater than even a sales manager, I would say. So that's the alignment we are creating about the product, and these people go home or go to their office being highly engaged employees, because they see a very different message from the company coming through. And surprisingly enough, most of them have come back even suggesting different kind of recipe for, let's say, yippee. Okay, you can have yippee with capsicum yippee, or whatever, tomato plus capsicum yippee, etc., etc. Now, why I'm giving those examples is, now this is an event which is extremely inclusive, because sometimes we forget the back end stuff as well, and without knowing that they are actually the most important channel for driving engagement at the workplace. So I would say these people are the glue. Sometimes you need a glue in your workforce for engagement. You have to find the right glue. Now, for us, these are the glue. For your organization, I do not know who are the glue. Now, it could be contractors in your organization. They could be some other people. They could be newcomers. They could be Gen Z. They could be millennials. I don't know. But in our organization, they have formed an important part, and they are the glue. And uh, at the end of it, I think they are the people who are now working as or now serving as brand ambassadors to communicate the unique value proposition of the product. So this is an example of how we have created alignment from the pyramid, from the base of the pyramid to the zenith, because you will not be having a computer operator sitting there saying, well, my job is just to enter some data, but I don't know what the product is all about. But his day in, day out activity, or his very purpose of existence is because a company is manufacturing some products, and he should be knowing it inside out. So please examine those cementing, uh, cementing material or cementing entity in your group who can be glue for engagement. So this has worked really well for us, and this is an innovative idea that I think we had forgotten for many years, but I think it's a learning. It's an immense learning for us. It's a practical learning. We have not learned it from any book. The next one is an important one. I think most of you might have gone through the joy or agony of the performance management cycle most recently. So you will relate to this slide very well. Now this is something that we did to enable the workforce through clear goals and clear rewards. We talk a lot about SMART goals, and everybody in this webinar must be aware of it. The goals are specific, measurable, agreeable, realistic, time bound, and so on and so forth. Now here is an example of a sales executive who works in our chemist and cosmetic channel, because we sell soaps and deodorants and other personal care products in the chemist and cosmetic channel. We have a flagship incentive program called as Laksha. What that talks about is basically, on the right hand side you see our philosophy. Though I'm talking about a sales organization, but the weightage you see on sales is 35% and not 100%. So we have divided his goals into sales, productivity, how he does. So sales is what, productivity is how, and there are some philosophies we have in terms of visibility, freshness of quality, and other measures. People are people, everything cannot be boxed in numbers. So you might have a new launch going on in 1 month, so you have to give credence to that in the performance cycle or performance measurement framework. That's what we have done in terms of other measures. So what I'm trying to say here is, if you align your performance management system with fair amount of objectivity, I'm not saying 100%, with fair amount of objectivity, then it drives a strategic linkage to the rewards. There is less and less confusion, less and less heartburn. So the key things here is there's an enhanced visibility to a frontline sales guy in terms of what his performance asks are. Every day, Monday, 9:30, he knows what he needs to do till 5:30. Second, he knows if he does a certain thing in a certain manner, what is going to be the reward. And this is an everyday phenomenon, rather than we evaluating a guy at the end of the year and springing in surprises. You did this, you did not do this, etc. What has helped us to drive engagement of workforce through this kind of state-of-the-art performance management system is milestone-based rewards. Okay. Now I'm giving you the example of a sales organization wherein the frequency of reward we have decided is, let's say, quarterly. Depending on the population you have, and I'm going back to my slide number 1, wherein I spoke about demographic profile, millennial, Gen Z, etc. You might have to decide the frequency accordingly. accordingly, and that will, because various people go through various, I mean, a 20-year-old has different needs, a 40-year-old has different needs, right? And a 55-year-old different need. I also cannot assume that all my salespeople are 25-year-old. I might be having salespeople at the front line who might be even 55-year-old, right? So those things need to be considered. And in our experience, this has given a lot of clarity. This has strengthened motivation, engagement. The guy sees what is the light at the end of the tunnel, what is the carrot he is gunning for, and at the end of it, either recognition in the form of non-monetary rewards or rewards in the form of monetary compensation comes to him as incentive at the end of the quarter to his bank account. So there's a direct linkage, and I think this has helped us drive engagement to a large extent. The fourth one is, it is roll up. What that basically means is, if all of us are striving for one goal, it is quite possible that, if I have 4 people under me, then whatever those 4 people have achieved should also accrue to me to some extent, if not to the entire extent. I'm not disjoint. So does your performance management system has a design of accountability, and similarly, driving down efforts to motivate a team, because you have to design a system which also motivates a team rather than create silos, right? So that's our learning. It's not that we did not have silos. At some point in time, we probably had discrete performance management system, but we have learned from that, and we have moved to an integrated performance management system with complete strategic linkage to to effort and outcome. So we reward effort, we reward outcome, and we also reward behavior. So that's pretty important for us to understand. I will urge you to see what kind of organization you are, whether you are a life insurance organization, whether you are a manufacturing organization, whether you are an IT organization, whether you are an FMCG organization or a pharma organization, because some of these levers of performance management will be different for you. It might not be ditto like this, but you have to see that and marry it with a dimension of your demographics and your strategic business objectives. So that is my second example on creating alignment. The third example is a very important one, and again I'm going back to my slide number 1. Now, if my current disposition of demographics is a lot of people are Gen Z and millennials, etc., then probably a lot of learning that they're doing is actually on mobile. So today, if 80% of our 80% of our population is Salesforce, and let's say they have gone to the market, everything that they're learning is on the mobile. So do I have a exciting enough learning mobile platform to basically both push learning and also pull or seek opinion from them and correct my system, so that we are always state of the art. So what you see here is enabling the workforce through experiential and e-learning interventions. I gave the example of learning. So we have something called as Instagyan and updated knowledge on the go. Sometimes when you are in the market, you feel that you need to input something to the CEO of the organization because you observed an important insight. So it's both ways. It's not that only everything is coming from head office or corporate. You have to learn this. Maybe there's a reverse learning happening, because people who are at the decision makers level, they might not be having time to be at the ground level every day, but you might have important insights coming in. So are all those things provided? Now, if that is so, the guy at the field also feels extremely motivated, empowered, and engaged, that a small suggestion of his, which he suggested on one fine Tuesday, actually has got implemented on a Friday in the entire country. That is what is true engagement, not basically completing some surveys. That is true engagement. And then that happens on a Friday, and on next Monday everybody sees this hero in the portal because this guy has suggested that, right? So it has such a cascading impact, such an infectious impact that you might not be many of us might not even fathom that. So when we started this, we thought, it will just help us push learning, pull learning. but it cascaded into many other aspects of it. So that's number one. Number two, we have integrated M-learning with many other aspects in terms of, let's say, factory visits, uh, or if I am a personal care guy, uh, me getting exposed to even foods processes. Today, I might not be selling, let's say, bingo, or I might not be selling Ashirwad Atta. I might be selling engaged you, but there might be some cues which I might get from other aspects, other factories or other channels. So this is something that we have very consciously done, and we see complementary strengths coming from various aspects. What you see on your left and on your right are basically interactive games which help improve the learning and create a high amount of energy in the in the generation Z and millennials and others as well. So that is on creating alignment. Now let me go to the fourth one, which I spoke about. We cannot be conjuice people. I use that word stingy. I think we have to recognize people and recognize loudly. Okay, whichever organization it is, and I can bet that any organization cannot be conservative in recognizing whichever industry it is, because at the end of it, you are not dealing with machines or algorithms, you're dealing with people. So here the case study is we initially had what you call as regional recognition programs. Something is in south, something is in north, something is in east, something is in west. We while that was great, what we did is we created something called as a national recognition program, wherein the regional recognition program integrated with the national recognition program. So I might be a hero in Bangalore, but then I have to compete. So let's say Karnataka, I have to compete with Andhra Pradesh, Kerala, and Tamil Nadu in my region. And then if I win, then I come to my regional winner. And then if I compete, then if I win, then I have to compete among similar zones, northeast, west, south, etc., and become national winners. What we did not do is we did not change the parameter of evaluation. Let's say I'm getting evaluated on my cost controlship, on my cost consciousness. Now that remained the same in terms of the category or the product that I was handling, but it only became stiffer and stiffer, or difficult and more difficult. And the end of it, people won national competition. So the number here, if you see on the bottom of the screen, is 2,000 participants, 400 recognitions regionally, 18 recognitions, nationally. That's about 1%, less than 1%. But did anyone say, why am I going to be in this race for just 1%? Out of 100 people, one is going to get recognized. So do I at all be in the race? I don't think anyone said that. The message I'm trying to share here is the energy it generates when you have an integrated recognition program rather than piecemeal recognition program. It's the same story as 1 + 1 is greater than 2. The sum of the parts is greater than the whole. And we have actually tasted this success. People have come back with huge amount of engagement, motivation. This is actually, we have tracked data to see engagement levels, attrition levels, recommendation levels, okay, team motivation levels, and I think this has worked perfectly fine for us. But there are three approaches that we have done. We haven't compromised on the differentiation bit. So we have had various performance differentiation levels. As we move on from one layer to another layer, it only becomes more and more competitive. Second, it is completely aligned to what we call as our performance management system. I have already discussed the same with you, which is Lakshya, and it builds a healthy competitive spirit. Again, this is a classic HR intervention where you need not do anything in terms of any survey for that matter for engagement. It just builds engagement through an upward spiral, and it generates such an amount of energy that we did not even think of it happening when we started this program. So this is one recognition with aplomb. The second one, which you see, which we have done for not only frontline but for everyone, middle level managers, junior level managers, is what we call as unique, wherein we had 165 assistant managers. These are all management training school people with 3 years, 5 years, 6 years experience. We have about 350 ideas, finally leading to the best 7. Now, the message I want to drive here is it's the same as the earlier one, which I mentioned, which is basically TMND Olympics. This is Olympics. This is unique, but the message is, though there were 7 winners, again, the amount of energy it created, the amount of camaraderie it created, people made friends, people made mentors while competing for ideas. People change their opinions about people, in terms of their perception. And the best 7 basically were implemented as strategic drivers for the organization. It's not an award-winning competition. This all led to what could be done for the business at the end of this unique challenge. And all those things that you see, 22 ideas, 59 ideas, also have been implemented at the regional level. They're just not ideas, sitting in any folder of any network drive or gathering dust. They're actually practical ideas wherein people have made critical inputs. So I think this also has helped us create an enabling and engagement workforce. So I want to summarize once again, because it's important for us to understand those principles. Sow it early. Sustain across the life cycle. Creating alignment with systemic enablers. I have given at least 2 to 3 examples in each of these principles that have worked for us, and recognize with aplomb. But if you remember, I started the conversation with you by mentioning that if you do all 4 and you don't do this, the 5th one, then it will not help us build the culture. So my request and urge to you is, please examine if there is a possibility. Not possibility, I think there is no other possibility. If you want to really build a culture of engagement, then I think repeating all of the above in a cyclical manner would probably help you sustain the same. So that is the virtuous cycle I'm referring to: repeatability and with learnings and improvement. So thank you very much for listening. We have about a few minutes more. If you have any questions or you have any queries, then I would request you to please post them. I would be most happy to respond to that. So if there are any queries, any questions, any other practical insight that you think will help you in your role or your organization, then given whatever my limited experience is there, I will be happy to respond to any of your questions. Okay. Rituparna has asked a question. How did you align the line managers in these initiatives? I think that is an excellent question. Excellent question. I think it's very important to understand what is the benefit that the line manager is getting out of all these initiatives. In fact, the examples that I gave you is as line manager, I will only be interested in my person's development if it brings in more revenues to me, if it helps me optimize my cost, and if there is something that the people organization can do to basically equip that person, drive it better, then I would be more than happy. That is number one. Number two, we have also embarked upon the exercise of joint KPIs, wherein people delta in people improvement is also a responsibility or an accountability of the line managers. See, because the example that I gave you was about a sales organization, wherein everything and anything is about the people as a resource. Because I mean they are not machines, they are not there's no other infrastructure but people as an infrastructure. So I think managers got convinced about the fact that it is in their interest only in terms of revenues or profitability that they have to uh, they have to uh, they have to do this joint partnership with the people function. And the second thing I want to share here, Ritupurna, is a lot also depends on the influencing skills of the people stakeholders or people managers. Now, if they develop cold feet or they pussyfoot, then I think it's not going to work. So it's very important to also question our capability to influence. Do we have the right people who are influencing people above them? And it's more about above rather than sideways. So that's our learning. Okay, Shilpi has asked a question. You mentioned about M-learning, that other than the push and pull approach towards learning, it served other purposes also. If you could please share those other purposes. So those other purposes, it's like this, Shilpi. I have a 7-year-old daughter. Okay, I think I learn more from her than she learns from me. The way she observes simple things. The example that I'm going to give you is, which I already mentioned during the presentation. Now there is this frontline sales staff who goes to a particular retailer and observes that a particular product is selling super fast and a particular product is selling in a moderate manner, right? But the same product is selling in a reverse manner in another retailer. So is it a product rotation problem? Is it that the retailer is not educated enough to put the right product at the right eye level? Is it a capital flow problem? Is it a credit problem? So from all these things, someone actually recommended to the senior people to have some aspects of change of policy. Let's say credit policy. Now it's a simple observation, but somebody sitting at a very high level might not be aware of it, and that has helped us basically do some impactful changes in our policies. Okay, Shilpi, you can respond if I have answered your question or not. If you have not, then I will probably try to answer it further. The third question is from Ghanshyam Somani. What is the methodology you adopted to find out the engagement programs initiatives? Okay, I think this is an excellent question. The methodology we adopted to find out the engagement programs or initiatives are basically just the other way around. If you do a needs assessment, are you in a position to pinpoint on aspects which basically drives disengagement at work? The answer to that is actually the contra of the question. If you know what are the aspects that are driving disengagement to work, you possibly can build in or extrapolate that disengagement is leading to probably higher attrition, loss of brand image, loss of quality, etc., etc. Now, if that is so, then what are you going to do to stem that disengagement? So that's how we did that need. We basically wanted to stem the disengagement. But while stemming the disengagement, we have come to the conclusion that it has led to quantum jump in engagement. And say, for example, uh, uh, the feedback that came from some people is, you know, all the if you are 80% out in the market, then can I really learn by coming to the classroom once in 3 months? That basically means I'm wired to only learn after 3 months. That's a constraint. Learning, I see Google every day, right? I see YouTube every day. So can I learn every day? So that prompted us to do some whatever mobile learning, for example. So the answer to that lies in the problem itself. Okay, next question is from Ritupurna Kundu. How do we integrate values with engagement? Well, okay, this is a difficult one, Ritupurna, and I think this is an excellent question. I think between values and engagement, and this is what I have been harping on or reiterating in my presentation, I have been using the word philosophy. So I think it is important for us as managers, senior managers, to be very clear what our philosophy or values are. And if we are clear about that and it is non-negotiable, then I think engagement will fall in place. So I don't see both of them as actually two different entities. I mean, do we have a philosophy or values to acknowledge that in an organization there could be 5 generations? Once you acknowledge that, because that comes here from a value system, once you acknowledge that, then it will be so easy and clear, crystal clear in front of you, that you have to learn customized aspects of initiatives to drive engagement for 5 different groups, because they're in a different life cycle. Okay, thanks, Shilpi. You have responded. Okay, Rajan has asked this question. After you have made the demographic categorization of Gen Z and others, how have you approached on their engagement levels? I think I just answered that question, but let me further elaborate on it. See, Rajan, there is something called as the least common multiplier, which all of us have studied, LCM during our school days, and there will be some diverse aspects. So I think as an organization, it is very important to understand the common aspects of engagement, irrespective of generational differences, demographic differences, locational differences. That more or less will be the values of the organization and some common policies. But uh, we have taken a segmented approach as well. So if you go back to my presentation, in the learning forum, I had mentioned many things. I had mentioned M learning, which is of course E and mobile learning. I had also mentioned factory visits, and there was something else called as WEP, or what we call as winning edge program. So for some people learn best through classroom and experience. Some people learn best through e-learning or mobile. So did we take a one size fit all approach and painted everyone with the same color? No. So for people who are in the new generation, I think digital learning, and I think there is some course coming on CII after some weeks, you can attend that, has helped them. But there are some people who want to touch and feel the product. I gave you an example of very senior ladies or women who were tasting Yepi and who went through the very concept of making their own Yepi recipe. But they learned at the end of it. And if I were to force them learn only through mobile, then probably they would not have that amount of knowledge. So that's what we did, and those are the examples I think I've shared. You have to see who are your segments or categories of people. Okay. Okay, one more question has come from Mehul Joshi. Mehul is asking, how about linking engagement to business numbers like quarterly R&R for achieving targets, spot recognitions? Okay, I'm not sure whether I have understood Mehul Joshi's question, but let me articulate. Okay. Yeah, see, Mehul, as we speak, I think most organizations uh, measure engagement through surveys. And there are some organizations who use engagement also in their performance management. Before we reach there, I think it's very important for us to assess our maturity level. Before we put in a number and link everything to numbers and money and all of that, if we are not mature enough to palate or digest some of the outcomes, then it would mean putting the horse before the cart and things like that. So you can link, but that will depend on the maturity level of the individual. Otherwise, it will be like, I mean, the baby is just born and you're putting it and throwing the baby to the bathwater or to swim independently. Okay. Yeah. Thanks, Mehul. I've got your message. Yeah, probably it can backfire if you are not ready enough or mature enough. So that's why the fifth one, if you see Mehul, Ritupurna, Rajan, and others, is the repeatability of doing 1, 2, 3, 4, so that you build a culture. Because culture takes time. It might take a year, it might take 2 years, 3 years, 5 years, and then only you can think about dashboards and numbers and linking and rewards and money and all of that. Okay, any other question? We are just about running out of time, but if there is any last question, I will be more than happy to take. Okay, thank you guys. Thank you very much for listening to me patiently. And offline, if you guys want to reach out for any further queries or conversation, then I am most willing to do that. Okay, one more question I think Pradeep has sent. In the interest of time and to respond to him, I will respond that. What motivates when the employee is 20 years old? Okay, you're asking that to someone who is 40 years old. But okay, let me give you a theoretical answer because I don't think I can answer this by thinking what I was when I was 20 years old. But in our experience, I think I will sum it in one manner, whatever little we have witnessed. I think what motivates 20 years old is challenge. What motivates 20 years is challenge. They want to push the envelope and they want the organization to give them opportunities to push the envelope, and they want the organizations to give them feedback about everything, good, bad, ugly. In my view, that's what motivates a 20-year-old. Challenge and transparent feedback. Thank you, Pradeep, Mehul, everyone who has asked the questions, and others also who might want to ask the question or later or have any queries. I had really appreciated, talking to you and conversing with you. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much for your participation and wonderful questions. And Ashim has really taken us through a wonderful journey of understanding the whole process. And I just would like to end this session by saying that I hope you will be able to find the right glue for your organization. And also reminding everyone, the next session is going to be on 28 July, and the topic is key retention strategies. So looking forward to your participation. Thank you very much. And if you have any further questions, please don't hesitate to send your questions to us, and we will definitely help you to connect with Ashim. Also, please share your feedback. We will be circulating the feedback forms. So please share your feedback and what you want to know from the next 3 remaining sessions also. So thank you very much once again. Bye-bye.